the people who hate Bush, like myself, are heating up one end of the stick. We're getting it red hot, but we're not reaching the middle at all. Now, my feeling is that if I were a Republican, I would know how to handle that rage. I would encourage it and encourage it and encourage it. And I'd have my little people in with all the activists to create some awful, awful scenes while the conventions are on. Because you keep talking about how awful the media is in terms of its limitations. It cuts off both ends of every discussion. The media is that way for a reason, which is this country, the center of this country, the corporations, are determined to control the thing. And my argument is that unless Kerry's elected, and God knows Kerry is not Jesus Christ, nor is he Joan of Arc. He's a man slightly to the left of the middle who will play with the corporations and work with them. But nonetheless, he will have to have more of an open ear to us than the Bushies. And so our first need at this point is not to keep heating one end of the stick. It's to reach the middle. It's to reach those conservatives who don't know what we're talking about. And the immediate need is to defeat Bush. But to do that, we have to reach the middle. And the only way we can reach the middle at this late date is that if we're extraordinarily peaceful in our demonstrations before the election, because the media are just waiting there like coiled springs, hoping that there'll be a few maniacs who'll cut loose. Maybe there'll be a few people who'll know what to do with the American flag as far as the Republicans are concerned. And that is, the Republicans are hoping that we'll make assholes of ourselves. They're counting on that. And I would like to see the word go out to all the activists that we are walking into a tremendous trap. Why ever did the Republicans choose New York? Keep asking yourself that question. Leon Trotsky once said there are certain questions that answer themselves by being asked. And that one, you ask yourself, you'll have the answer. Why did the Republicans choose New York? Let's not walk into their trap. Now,
well, why don't we continue in that vein? And you wrote an incredible work, Miami and the Siege of Chicago, about what happened in 1968. Why don't you talk about the Siege of Chicago and relate it to what you're talking about today?
Well, there you had, in a funny way, what you had was a reverse media, because the media covered the massacre on Michigan Boulevard. Most of you, I'm sure, know all about it. For those of you who don't, there was a huge march of demonstrators, an essentially peaceful march that went up Michigan Boulevard. And at a given moment, given the order by Mayor Daley, then, not the present, Richard Daley, but his father, the police surged into the marchers and beat them up with canes. And it was all on television. It was extraordinary television. One of the incredible moments of network television. And everyone was shocked down to the core. The Cronkites, the Rathers, whoever was there then, I don't even remember, they all were profoundly shocked. And it looked, at the moment, it looked like how awful the Republicans are going to pay for this. Quite the contrary. The Republicans won. Because out there in the core of America, the thing we have to recognize is the injustices you're talking about in the media, which have rankled me for so many years I came and talk about, are not going to be overcome by our talking. They're going to be overcome by our acquiring bits of power more and more. I'd even argue with you that the New York Times, bad as it is today, is far better than it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, it wasn't even written well. And the point is that to overtake this incredible centrality of the corporation, we've got to learn guile. We've got to learn an understanding of the enemy. We've got to devote our lives to it. Not all of our lives. None of us will do that, I hope. But we have to devote a good part of our lives to recognizing that we're not going to win this war by being funnier than the Republicans. The Democrats and the left have been incredibly more funny than the Republicans for 50 years. I said this in Wellfleet last year. We've been laughing at them for 50 years, and we're further back now than when we began. The way to do it is to acquire power. And people in the middle of America are terrified of change. Very often they have bad conscience. The bad conscience comes because, to the degree that they're good Christians, which must be half of the country, they feel that they're a little too greedy to be a good Christian, and it bothers them, which is why we keep getting this brainwashing all the time, which is immensely more successful than the brainwashing that went on in the Soviet Union. That was crude. The kids saw through it. They hated it. Now the brainwashing is immensely sensitive, subtle, clever. You pointed it out all over the place what they do. I was agreeing with you every step of the way, but at the same time I kept saying it can never be enough because we're talking to ourselves. We've got to reach into that middle. And I would just say the first step is to get Kerry elected, whatever faults he has. Once he's elected, we will have more of a voice. We're not going to have the voice. The corporation will still have the voice. But it could be the beginning of a very long march back toward at least the center of the power we need. And I'm slightly ahead, and I'm going to quit. You go.
What do you think of